The September 3rd, 2013 County Commission meeting to order. We'll stand for a moment of silent reflection and then the Pledge of Allegiance led by Dustin Willett.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item is to review and approve the agenda. Does anyone wish to remove anything or rearrange the agenda in any way?
Mr. Chair, make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item is the consent agenda. Holly?
Good morning, Commissioners. The Board of Commissioners uses a consent agenda to act on non-controversial and routine items quickly. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and vote of the Board. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of a board member or a citizen. Today, I've placed the following items for your consideration. Approval of the meeting. How about approval of the minutes from August 20th, 2013? Approval of the vouchers in the amount of $159,860.88. Approval of the request to amend something previously adopted simply to correct a typographical error to the Redneck Road District annexation legal description as presented by the Auditor's Office. Number 8 is approval of the 2013 Emergency Management State and Local Agreement Addendum as presented by the Emergency Management Office. Number 9 is approval of the request to declare surplus a Trimble GPS Pathfinder Pro XT receiver for the purposes of trade as submitted by the Highway Department. And finally, number 10 is approval of Amendment Number 1 to the Grant Agreement 2013 MPB-001 as submitted by the Weed and Pest Department.
Does anyone wish any of the items on the consent agenda removed? Not, the Chair would entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair, as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is item 11, proposed Cane Creek and Kelly land exchanges update. Helen Anderson.
That's right.
Please identify yourself as you address the commission.
My name is Alan Anderson. I'm the District Ranger for the Wall District of the Buffalo Gap National Grasslands, and I have with me Mike McNeil, who is the District Ranger for the Fall River District of the Buffalo Gap, and Eric Brunnerman, who is the Superintendent of the Badlands National Park.
Thank you.
Topic today is Cane Creek Land Exchange and Kelly Land Exchange. We have another one to present to you.
Mr. Chair. You know, I think you're going to need to speak louder because we're recording and I can hardly hear you and.
My voice is really low. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay. My wife has that problem too. I sent in a package to Holly, and I hope you all got it. It is quite a bit of information. I'm sorry if it was a lot of reading, but it is has a pretty good summary of what I'd like to talk about briefly, and that's the land exchanges in general, the Cane Creek and the Kelly Land Exchange. The land exchanges in general, there were some maps there. Did those get through to the printing that showed the land exchanges that we've conducted on the Buffalo Gap over the last 40 years or so? It shows how broken up the federal parcels and the private parcels were back in '64, and then it shows again in '84, and then it shows in 2004. And I don't have one for right now, but it shows how the isolated parcels were were exchanged in such a way that it blocks up the private land so that the private landowners can manage their land more effectively in their boundaries. And also the same thing with public land, primarily the Buffalo Gap National Grassland in the area adjacent to Wall. And you'll see there's quite a bit of work that's been done there over those number of years. I went through the files. There's about 39 different land exchanges that have taken place so far to do that. It's quite a bit of work. And a lot of the people that are in that area, the names are on those files, that most of them over the years have participated in one regard, in one exchange or another over the years. Cane Creek Land Exchange, Mike and I last year about this time, June I think it was, and presented our proposed Cane Creek Land Exchange. And there's been changes since then. The land that was, our partner is the Nature Conservancy on this exchange, so we're going to exchange land with them, and they're going to sell that land immediately to the private sector, the people that are adjacent to the isolated parcels from the Forest Service. And that pre-work has already been done, so they have people that are willing to buy that land once they get it. The big difference is the land that TNC proposed to exchange to us. The largest parcel was in Kanata Basin, Imlay Township, and it was primarily the old White Ranch, if you're familiar with the folks down there. And they proposed to change that to the Kudruna place. They became owners of the Kudruna Ranch, and a good percentage of that land is now the biggest piece that's proposed for exchange to the Forest Service. All of the parcels proposed to come into public ownership in this exchange is in Pennington County. There are 3 counties involved, Jackson and Fall River, and so our land that is going to be exchanged is across all 3 counties. But most of the land all the land that's coming from public to private is in your county, and I think that was your big concern last time. We have a new person in the exchange. Charles Cruz has 160 acres that he wanted to exchange with us, so that is now included in the exchange. Another change is the land was most of it was in Imlay Township, and now with this change, most of it, the private land coming to public is in Scenic Township. There's still some in Imlay Township. The details are on the maps that I gave you, where all the parcels are in all 3 counties, going both ways. The next piece of information is the federal land payments research that I did last time. I was acting in this position last time, and now that I've taken it on permanently, I call myself as I'm just pretending to be a ranger. But the research I did was to try and, for me and hopefully for you, to get a handle on what impact this land exchange would really have on the different local governing bodies, yourself, the townships, and the Wall School District. And I was quite surprised by the results. It showed that the county, because of primarily the PILT payments, would actually see an increase in resources, not a lot, but an increase after you deducted the loss of tax revenue. And that's primarily because the taxes on this particular piece of land is very low. It's like $1.55 an acre. So the PILT is, I think, $1.71. So it'll actually show an increase for the county. Townships, I found that their money comes from the state primarily in the three main programs, and is not involved in the property taxes or the federal land payments. So it's kind of a wash with the townships from what I could find. The biggest change is in impact aid, which is a program that reimburses the school systems for federal land, large tracts of federal land in their areas. And I researched that with the original Wall Schools superintendent, that was there when they started that program and the current one, Dennis Reichman, to get a good understanding of what that program involved and what impact this would have. And it looks like this land would be eligible for payment under impact aid, in which case it's about $13 an acre. So that is another big benefit to the school district, it turns out. I'm not an expert on any of those programs. I just did my research online and found what I could find. And they're big and they're hairy and they're changing all the time, and you guys, I'm sure, are aware of that. But at this point, it looks like the school system could see an increase of $30,000 from the Cane Creek Land Exchange. Questions on Cane Creek? I can flip over into the Kelly Land Exchange, or I can take questions, I guess, on Cane Creek now, if you have any.
Can I just make some comments, Mr. Chair? Without the payment in lieu of taxes, the PILT, I'm looking at your chart. Without that, the county would lose money.
Correct.
And so we have never operated expecting PILT money because it is such a moving target for Congress.
Right.
And it's an easy thing for them to pull from the budget. And so for me, sometimes when I look at this type of chart, it's like, that has nothing to, PILT is like a tooth fairy that comes to us once in a while, you know. And so when you make your comparison and when you're making your report, for me, including PILT without a lot of disclaimer is really not a good way to say we'll be okay financially as a county. Then the other part of this is, and this is hard for you to know, but and I know that we as a county experience a lot of expense, which isn't really addressed here. I mean, Heine is here right now, and but you know, I know that like Sage Creek Road and some of those, we've spent a lot of money trying to deal with issues there, and I think that amount of money. I mean, we lose money when we do these kinds of exchanges. That's all there is to it, because not only that, we're going to have law enforcement issues down there too. So I mean, we spend money down there more than $3,000. Yeah. So just to let you know, this is a really great report. But when I was reading it, there are many more factors involved in this, and probably it'd be a good idea if you're wanting a final report. If you want the real reality for us as a county, you probably need to come to us and get a little more information than taking it off the internet. So,
I understand, yeah.
Just my point.
I did work with the county auditor on the tax figures and the township figures also, but I didn't get into those issues. You're right, and those are kind of hard to find.
Because that's where our expense is.
Right.
And that's what PILT is supposed to help us cover,
Right.
but it never does.
I understand. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to ask a question or two here, but why is the Nature Conservancy involved in this between the federal government and the private landowners? What benefit of it is theirs, and what benefit does that do for the county or the landowners, the private landowners, or what does it benefit? How does it benefit them?
Well, their mission, the way I understand it, is to conduct actions that forward the conservation of land. Their involvement here is to be a facilitator, I guess, to help with that effort in the Kanawha Basin. Now they have some land down there, and they ranch on it, but they want to trade that with us to help with the overall land exchange issue, trying to block things up. So the benefit to the private sector, I think, down there is as this land gets blocked up, it reduces the amount of boundaries with the Forest Service and the Park Service. It reduces the number of isolated parcels. of federal land in the middle of private land and private land in the middle of federal land. So I think it makes it, from my perspective, it makes it easier for them to manage their land and for us to manage our land. Reduces the conflicts along the borders because there's fewer of them. That's probably the most important.
The Nature Conservancy is not in this for their health.
No, sir. They have put a lot of effort and money into this, and they're not getting reimbursed for that.
And are they, once they get their hands on it, will they put easements on it to nullify the use of certain types, or?
No, sir. This land is coming to us without unencumbered.
What about the property to the private individuals?
Same thing. The land that we exchange, they get all the rights to that land that we have for its use.
They're guaranteed there's not going to be anything on it that's going to prohibit use.
Not that I know of.
Well, is there a way to find that out?
I can work with our land person, but she has indicated so far that there won't be any encumbrances on that land.
Well, I'd appreciate it if you'd let us know if that changes.
Okay. Well,
Any other questions or comments? Did you have anything further you wanted to offer, Ellen?
not on Cane Creek, no. This is going to come out for public scoping. It'll be in the paper, and it'll be sent to the folks that have expressed an interest in this. Mostly, a lot of the folks down there. It'll get a direct mailing that this is now out for a comment again. Comments that you guys have already given us, and comments from the townships and the cattlemen's are good, unless you want to add to them or change them.
What is the time interval between it being made known to the public and the comment period?
This one is 30 days unless it gets extended. I think it was extended last year.
So, Mr. Chair, just one more thing. I just want to clarify what I was trying to say to you. This is the report that goes out to the public, but when it goes out, what it's doing is it's giving the impression that it's a good thing for the county. And technically, it's going to cost us money no matter how we look at it. And I would prefer that it be changed to reflect the truthfulness of the issue rather than present a picture that isn't quite true, and then we go ahead and we say, no, that's not true, and return a comment. Is that a possibility?
What I've got before you, I'm not intended to try and deceive anyone. That's what I found. If there's stuff that I can add to that I can get the information on, I can add that, but I don't have that right now.
Okay, yeah, because what I mentioned with the highway and the law enforcement is an expense to us down there. And
It will be hard to ferret out how this particular exchange is going to change, because those will change those costs. But I can talk with Heine and see if he can help me with that.
on one of the maps, it showed that how Sage Creek Road was weaving through there. And I mean, if this $3,000 exchange is meant to cover what we do with Sage Creek Road, I mean, in order to get there, it's not exactly truthful.
Sage Creek Road doesn't go through, I don't think,
Well, it
the
was
land
right on
in
the
Cane
edge.
Creek. It does with Kelly. It does with the Kelly Land Exchange. Yeah, goes through the middle of that. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we'll move on to the Kelly Land Exchange.
Okay. The Kelly Land Exchange, the proponent is Don Kelly from the area just south of Wall. It is about 10 miles south of Wall, and it proposes to exchange about 650 acres that is inside the boundary of the Badlands National Park and owned by Don Kelly for approximate equal amount of acres just outside of the park that is Forest Service land, and it's adjacent to his current land inside the park. It's also adjacent to land that he currently owns adjacent to the land he's going to get, so he'll be able to consolidate his holdings in that area outside of the boundaries of the park. The Forest Service proposes to exchange with Mr. Kelly, and then that land would be managed by the Badlands National Park subsequent to the exchange. in that process. Mr. Kelly's AUMs that he has currently on National Forest land outside the park that he's going to get ownership of. Those AUMs, that land will be his, so we can't permit AUMs to him on that. So he will lose about 250 AUMs in that process, and he would like to talk to us about possibility of replacing that somewhere else, and we're trying to set up a meeting with him now. I have Eric Brunnerman here to maybe talk a little bit about the value of this land exchange for Badlands National Park.
Good morning, Commissioners. Chairman Peterson, Vice Chair Troutman, good to see you. I've been in the park since 2010 and have gotten familiar with Don Kelly. And in his own words, he says, I've had a good run of it. I enjoy being inside Badlands National Park, but I'm ready to consolidate, move outside the park. He said, park business can do park business, and I'll be outside. And what he's really trying to do, and I don't mean to speak for him, but he said I could. He's said, I've been at this business of ranching out in this area for a good 30 years of my life, my whole family. He said, I'm setting this up for my family, my descendants. And he says, I just want this taken care of. And he said, I love seeing the 250,000 visitors that come down Cane Creek, along Sage Creek Road, but he said they don't mix very well when I'm trying to do ranching work and trying to bring in hay and do other things. So it is generated by him. He's interested in being a willing, relocator, if you will. And it's one of the National Park Service's goals. When we have in-holdings, we let people stay there for as long as they want to. That's their business. But when we get a gentleman or a family that wants to move on, we'll help them in any way possible. And it's been a good, healthy relationship at this point. I'd also throw this part out. Cane Creek, if you've been, not Cane Creek, but Kelly, if you've been there, it sits right on the upper ledge of the wall. And so our bison herds cannot go across the rest of the park because of that location. When this happens, we'll put new buffalo fence around the perimeter of the park. Buffalo can now move, and it solves a lot of management problems for me, and maybe even for you. By moving them into the rest of the park, they can graze. I don't have to, as often, burn, which is another remedy for taking care of the landscape. I'd much rather have bison on the land than put fire on the ground. And also by moving that herd, being able to move that herd, I won't get those confounded dust storms. I won't be able to overgraze in areas and cause other hardships on our roads in that area. So I'm keenly aware of what our needs are in that area, and this could help us. So I'll take any questions on that too.
I might say if this happens. You said when.
Well, I always like to be optimistic. My glass is half full.
Any questions or comments? I've visited with Don and about this. He and I kind of grew up together, and he's very positive about this. So
And the taxes should be no effect because it's an equal number of acres approximately, and the land that he's getting is about the same kind of grazing land that he has, so the value should be about the same.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Anything else you wish to offer us?
No, just thank you for letting us come down and take another run at this.
One thing there for you.
Sure can.
Just to address one of your issues, Nancy, on that, that's the law enforcement part of that. We do have a co-op law agreement with the county, with the sheriff's office, and if we're seeing there's a bit of a problem there, we can always revisit that and see if there needs to be an augmentation to that reimbursement, so.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good morning.
Okay, next item is the first reading and public hearing on Ordinance 106, an ordinance for the declaration and abatement of public nuisance to prohibit texting while driving. Commissioner Musgrove.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. After I make a statement here, and whoever wants to do it, I'm going to make a motion to approve the first reading of this. I know there's some controversy number one, on whether we even have the authority to do it or not. But, I guess my thought is that if we may not be able to do it. On the other hand, we may be able to do it. So let's err on the side of doing the right thing. And the right thing is to prohibit texting while we're driving. It's the worst thing one can do when they're driving to deter from their attention on the roads. I'm not sure what the legislature and the city council necessarily have against it, but the only thing I've ever heard is that, well, it's hard to enforce. Well, that was the argument when the seatbelt law came in, too. It was going to be hard to enforce. And no one suggests that we get rid of that right now. So I think it's time that we do this. I know it'll probably only be in effect outside of municipalities, which obviously limits the effectiveness of it. But maybe by doing that, the municipalities will realize the benefits of it and see the light.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chair. I guess I would just have a question for Commissioner Buskerud. It would seem to me like if what we're trying to do is get the legislators to move forward on some kind of texting, maybe it'd be better if we as a Pennington County would pass a resolution encouraging some state legislation, and then obviously we have you there every year representing Pennington County, and try to lobby them and see if we can't get them to do something in this upcoming year rather than passing a ordinance that is going to be very confusing for the public, because where's the county line and the city municipality lines, and you and I might know all of that, but probably just because we've been in county business for so long, where the normal citizen wouldn't have maybe that clear of a indication of where the Rapid city limits and Box Elder city limits and New Underwood city limits and all of those things intersect within the county, and so where are they violating, where they're not. I mean, I support the concept, but I think this is probably the wrong direction.
I surely would be in favor of passing a resolution to go to the legislature. It's been tried a couple of times and doesn't seem to be getting much traction there, but I guess you keep trying it enough times, perhaps it will work one of these times. I can surely work with Senator Teason, who I think has been the sponsor, and him and I have talked about it a couple times. Yeah, I sure wouldn't have a problem with a resolution.
Any other comments? I have a question, I guess. In Section 4, raising the penalty from $200 to $500. I just want to get you up.
Jay Alderman with the State's Attorney's Office. Where that comes about, and that can easily be removed if you want. A number of years ago, the legislature updated the standard civil penalty, both in the criminal law for Class 2 misdemeanor and in civil law for county ordinances and resolutions and city ordinances and resolutions. And it went from 200 to 500. So I put that in there for you to consider if you want to do that. It's legal. I think our ordinance, the zoning ordinance, was updated to include the 500, but the nuisance ordinance has never been updated to come into line with, I can't remember how many years ago they did that. I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years ago. I just don't remember. So that's all that is that's the latest in statute as the maximum penalty.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, and with my agreement on Don, I still will make a motion to approve the first reading of this with the change from $500 to $200. I think 500 might be a little much. So I would make a motion to approve the first reading. And
Second.
Sure.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
roll call, please.
Okay, we'll have a roll call vote.
Yes?
Davis?
Yes.
Holloway?
No.
Troutman?
No.
Peterson?
Yes. Okay, motion carried. Next item is item 13.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Something to go along with that in the discussion that Don had, that we need to pass or send a resolution letter to the state legislature to try to get them to do something about it. And I think in this text, we should do that.
I think that would, have to be a next meeting agenda item?
I just looked at Jay, and I think he can handily do that for us.
The question I have is on the resolution. I'd be glad to draft that. Are you looking at state law change or county law change? Or both?
It can be both.
I would think state law would be where it should be. I mean, that's where they should pass this, and
Yeah.
we
It
should.
gets very confusing if one county does it, one city does it, next county doesn't do it. It is kind of a mess.
I guess I think about it, the only additional question I'd have is, a lot of folks in law enforcement, I think our sheriff would tell you that, the chief of police would tell you that what they're really looking for is some form of distracted driver legislation, not just limited to texting. People reading the newspaper, putting makeup on, eating, drinking a cup of coffee, none of that involves texting, but it's equally as dangerous. And so that's one of the things I think law enforcement has asked for, if there were consideration to look at a more broad distracted driver legislation versus just texting. But I throw that out there so you can give me some direction of how you'd want that.
In looking on the internet, obviously texting is the absolute worst distraction for drivers. I mean, they include things even such as changing your radio dial is distracted driving. I don't have a problem, but I think the more we go down the list, the harder it starts being to, and the harder it gets to ever pass anything like that. It's going to be hard enough to pass a texting. If you get into cell phone, I don't think it doesn't have a prayer.
Or if you get into drinking a cup of coffee.
No, not. So I agree 100% with you. When it comes down to the practicality of it, I just soon leave it at texting and let's start there.
I agree.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item is item 13, items from the auditor.
Good morning. Julie Pearson, Pennington County Auditor. Public hearing notice has been posted in the papers and is scheduled for this morning, and is a transfer from Rimrock Tavern, Harvey Scoville, to Rimrock Happy Tavern, Rimrock Holdings LLC. Do note that there's been an update on the address from Planning and Zoning from 12-300 to 12-330, just as a notation of update. Required paperwork from the state is attached. Fees have been paid.
Where is 12330 West Highway 44? You know?
Johnson
Sure.
Siding.
It's the Johnson Siding.
Yeah. Yep. A few years ago, the county commission divided those buildings off down the center walls of the businesses and made different businesses like they did downtown here in Rapid City, so you could sell individual businesses out of each corporation, and that's one of them.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I presume that the sheriff has done an investigation of the people that are taking this over. He was here, but I think he
There's
stepped out
a
the
letter.
hall. But just, yeah. But
Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to testify on this issue?
I just want to bring it out in public.
Do we have a motion?
I'd make a motion to pass the transfer as presented by the Auditor's Office of the liquor license for the Rimrock Tavern to the Rimrock Happy Tavern.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Items from the Highway Department. Item 14A.
Good morning, Heine Junge, Pennington County Highway Superintendent. I have one item before you today, and it's authorization to purchase road salt off the state bid. The state took bids for furnishing road salt in the Rapid City and Wall area, and the low bidder was Blackstrap Incorporated out of I can't say that word, Heligh, Nebraska. And we're wanting authorization to purchase off that state contract from that company.
Neely.
Neely is how you say that, Neely, Nebraska.
So moved.
We have a motion? Second? We have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Where in Nebraska is that now?
Neely.
You're good.
Quick learner.
Next item is item 15, executive session. Do we have a motion?
Move to go into executive session.
Second.
Motion and a second to go into executive session. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We're seconded to come out of executive session. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Since the
I
next one's
voted
at 10
aye.
o'clock, we could do 17 and appoint Mr. Jake Smith.
We could do that. We have to wait for the budget till 10 o'clock. So Holly, if you want to do item 17.
Item 17 is to ask the board to consider reappointing Mr. Jake Smith to a one-year term extension on the Air Quality Board. The reason this is off of consent is that this is a relative of Commissioner Troutman's, and she would like to abstain from any vote.
He's not here, so we'll,
Just for full public notice. We advertised for a month. We did not receive any applicants for the position. In the bylaws, it allows for us to reappoint for 1 year if it's in the best interest of the county and the city. And I contacted Mr. Smith, and he said he would be agreeable to that. So basically, I'm requesting is the commission to reappoint for 1 year and sign chairman's signature on the warrant of appointment.
So moved.
I'll second that.
moved and seconded to reappoint Jake Smith. Any further discussion? Not those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Still got 2 minutes.
I'm sure Auditor Pearson can fill 2 minutes for budget.
This is called the preview, or the preliminary or whatever.
The state law requires that the Board of Commissioners meet at 10 a.m. on the first Tuesday of September to officially address the publication of the provisional budget in the notice to all the taxpayers that has been posted. And what we have before you is, I'm not aware of any indication by board motion of any changes to the provisional budget as it was approved. The budget totals $83,465,856. It is supported by $41,018,965 in miscellaneous or non-current property tax revenues. We are using $8,092,667 in cash reserves from funds. We are levying $37,389,456 in new taxes, with the ultimate goal that we are not raising levies from last year's level. We have received our final growth figures on value. We have received our final land values from the Director of Equalization and balance to the Certificate of Value. However, we are still waiting on balancing utilities. The report that they got out by law, they're supposed to have it out on the last Monday of August. They did that, but it was wrong. So we've had to resend that back to them, and we haven't got that back in time to load. So the motion you make to approve the budget, I need to have you not only make a separate motion, but do the resolution that is attached, is so that when I do get utility growth figures and utility values in there, that to freeze the levy, which is our ultimate goal, that I can adjust the cash reserves up or down to create that. And so I would suggest, if you're ready to approve the budget today, motion to approve budget with ultimate goal to freeze levies at last year's level using cash reserves adjustment to accomplish that goal. And do that before, when you're finalized, but right before you do that. And we can still make that motion if you make changes to the budget today.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I would make a motion that we not finalize the provisional budget until the next meeting in September, which will be on the 20th, and I think that's Friday. And that would allow all people that are applying for county assistance to get their word in.
I'll second that. I have some questions.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. You had some
Yeah,
questions?
I do. What currently are the reserves, Julie? You just,
I don't have that report in front of me. It was attached. General is estimated at the end of next year at a little over 20%.
a little over 20?
Mm-hmm. And that was our major concern.
Yeah. It's probably in the report I have, I just can't find it.
It's a funny report. It's 12 pages long when you get all the
I don't
funds
have
in
that
there.
one, thank goodness.
But I have taken all the assumptions and applied them to all the funds. And, let's see if my glasses are big enough.
Back, yeah. Sorry.
Now Julie's just kind of going.
The rest of them are within that goal range also, at the end of 2014. And that was part of the goals that have been set by commissioners for quite some time.
And approximately how much money is that? What I'm trying to get at is, if I want to spend $25,000, what's that going to do to the percent?
It will lower it
Yeah,
some. But we haven't, like I said, we haven't put full utilities in. We're hoping if you delay until the 20th, we can, I can figure what each 25,000 would do.
yeah.
The 187,500 that we moved from accumulated building, which was by motion, to county general, lowered it 0.2, I think, %.
So 20% reserves is of the $41 million that we collect in,
It's of the total budget.
is of the total budget, so there's 16 million in there.
And we've made assumptions to get to that, like we do always, what we'll have uncollected at the end of, or over-collected at the end of the year, which we do a lot of supplements anymore, so I've estimated that down to 0. And a small, I think, 4 and 4.75% unspent budget, which is a pretty clear average,
Thank you.
For the benefit of Commissioner Troutman and Holloway, there's a motion and a second to finalize the budget on September 20th. And that's what we're discussing at this point.
You can make changes today and/or on that day. it's just hard to get you accurate numbers when you make changes on the 20th. We can do it live, but it's hard to tie that cash analysis in with that. It's in a different file.
So will everybody be here?
What's that?
Will everyone be here on the 20th?
I think you have the libraries and things here and economic development and already in the room, so I don't know if we want to hear from them today or not, but there is one or two that can't be here today.
This is published as a public hearing, so if they're here today, you most certainly can listen to them.
If we heard from the public first before we act on this motion, would that be reasonable?
Mm-hmm.
Would you withdraw your motion?
I don't know why they can't talk about the needs of their budget in the scope of doing the final budget on the 20th. I don't think that's a problem.
Well, wouldn't any discussion have to surround the motion, which is to continue at this point? So we couldn't talk about the budget, we just got to talk about whether we're going to finalize it today or not. At least that's the way I understand it.
Jay, you look like you've got to have something to say.
I think if you're opening the discussion to budgetary items in general and not literally limiting it to the continuation or the final approval on the 20th, then I would agree, I guess, with Commissioner Holloway. I think that is more accurate. So stay with your motion, but only allow discussion specific to your motion, or pull your motion and allow a more general discussion and bring your motion up after that.
Well, I think it'd probably have to be a more general motion, so I would do that. So my motion.
You withdraw your motion?
Yep.
Do you withdraw your second?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay. We'll,
This is noticed as a public hearing, so you can just ask for public comment.
yep. Okay, and we're ready for that. And Holly, do you have any particular order that you've invited people to come? So who would like to be first? Anyone wish to address the commission relative to the budget? If so, please step forward and identify yourself.
I'm not cutting in line from the library or somebody else. Well, good morning. My name is Benjamin Snow. I'm the president for the Economic Development Partnership, legally known as the Greater Rapid City Area Economic Development Corporation. And my goal here this morning is not to be a pest. I know I've been in front of this body many times. My goal is, though, to ask for you to consider a few facts before you finalize your 2014 budget. We look at ourselves as a nonprofit corporation that has financial support from the City of Rapid City, Pennington County, and a host of other private sector employers as being key to seeing that this region grow. So we clearly have an agenda that includes growth. And with that growth, of course, we expect there to be a growing tax base, whether it's a sales tax or property tax basis. This morning, after crunching some numbers, I wanted to share with you some of those numbers. And I really would like for you to look at our organization as your contract agent for economic development, seeing as that there is no full-time staff that works for the county dedicated to economic development. We feel like your investment with us is a pretty prudent use of taxpayer resources. Given the 5.21 mill levy for Pennington County that directly contributes to the county's budget, some $37 million, as anticipated this upcoming cycle. I wanted to point out just one example of some work that our office was involved in, and that is bringing WL Plastics into Rapid City. I've used conservative estimates, and they pulled roughly $3 million worth of building permits here this year. And using the formula that the county has for levying taxes on an institution like this, once that building hits the tax rolls, there'll be an estimated $13,000 in annual taxes that go into that facility. Another factor I'd like for you to consider is the fact that the 40-plus employees that are now at work there all need a place to stay. And using a modest estimate of what it costs each person, whether it's an apartment or a home, there's approximately $30 million worth of residential real estate that when you do the math on that, there's over $17,000 in additional property taxes that are collected. And this does not include the employees need to shop and consume other services, many of which also have a property tax basis, whether it's shopping stores and the like. That's just one company that will have an impact of over $30,000 direct and indirect property taxes in the positive for Pennington County. Other examples of companies that our office has worked with and continues to work with include Wausau Supply, RPM and Associates, Simcom, Caterpillar, currently in process expansion of a new consolidated headquarters for Premier Home Mortgage, and Dakota Panel, which is planning a sizable expansion on their facility. When you add up just that half dozen additional companies besides WL Plastics, there's another $49,000 of direct property taxes on net new facilities as a result of those companies' growth. And the indirect housing needs another $124,000 in property taxes for all the net new employees will be living. And again, this does not include the further ripple effect of increased demand for services, which also has the power of growing the property tax base. And I'm not here to talk about tax increment districts. I know that tax increment finance districts have been a point of controversy here. The only thing I wanted to point out is that all of these examples I've given are not in tax increment finance districts. So those are complete aside and separate from any of those projects. So I'm here to reiterate our request for $25,000 in funding, but I would at least like you to consider continuing support of our organization at the $10,000 year level as the county has done for the past 3 years. Thank you for your consideration. I'll stand ready for any questions if you have any.
Any questions for Mr. Snow?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just to follow up, just that statement about economic development. And don't get me wrong, I totally agree with Commissioner Holloway and the stands on the TIFs and the TIDs and all of the other stuff that the city puts in and how much that does cost the county. But we talked a little while ago about sending a resolution to the state legislators on the texting program. And that would be a situation I think that should do here too, is propose to the state legislature that they make some changes in how the TIFs and things are done. So I think it's a poor place to start saving money with the amount of good that I believe these people do. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Who's next?
My name is Cindy Gerard. I'm the library director at Hill City Community Library. And since I was here in May, I'm making a pest of myself also. We have increased our patronage. We've increased by about 5%, which is a tremendous amount in a small community that we are. And just like he was talking about his economic development, we are one of the areas that provide you economic development. We, in 2013, we received a grant for $6,000 to upgrade our computer systems Those systems are constantly being used to develop the economy in Pennington County. We use these to develop and print resumes. We use them for job searches. As you know, even the $7.25 an hour job, most of the people have to apply online. And a lot of these people, because of poor internet service in our area, we are called Hill City for a reason, don't have the ability to apply for these jobs. We've also helped different people come and research new businesses that they would like to start. We provide the opportunity for them to research. We also provide them not only the opportunity to research, but the resources to help them research. We have databases that are available that lots of people don't know about, that our librarians are very, very good at using. We also have ebooks now, just like Rapid City has, and that is a real good resource for our people. And we're just hoping that you can see the economic benefit that we give. Not only that, but the social and the educational benefits. We not only work with children, we work with the preschool children, and we provide them opportunities for literacy. But we also work with college students. There are a lot of college students these days that come to our library to not only study, but to take tests. If they had to take the tests at Sylvan Learning, I've been told that they charge them $75 a test. And these college students are, you know, they're working hard at other jobs, and they can't afford that. When they come to our library, we proctor tests for free. We also provide an area where they can study quietly, and if they need any research resources, we do that also. A lot of the people would have to travel 30 to 35 miles to do that. And I'm even told, but don't quote me on this because I'm not sure, that in Rapid City, there are, other than the University Center, there are very limited places where people can take their tests. So we feel that we provide an essential service, and right now, you're getting that service for about $19 per Pennington County resident that we serve. So we do it at a very efficient cost, and it is really something that is important to our community too. It is a community binder. We provide things that cannot be provided anywhere else. So are there any questions?
Any questions or comments?
No, I know you guys do a great job, and I appreciate it. Perhaps this is the appropriate time to say that we have developed a different contract this year, and we are working towards the fact that the reserve for the libraries is fast going down, and by 2015 probably won't exist. Maybe 2016, we are working on that. But one of the things that we have also done is we have changed requirements. We want a library to be considered essential, and
We are an essential.
and I know you are. And so we want to know that it is truly a library. We want to make sure that we are putting that money where it needs to go. And there will be changes, but for the upcoming year, we're pretty much, other than the requirements to remain an essential library, it's pretty much going to be the same. But we'll have one more year of that, and then we will be changing it. And we'll let you know. We'll meet with everybody.
Thank you.
What were you requesting of us today?
I'm just requesting the 26,000, let's see, I have to look exactly, 26,979.
That's what we have in the budget for them, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
So I think you're covered in our budget so
Yeah.
far in a way, unless somebody makes a motion to take it away.
Okay. Well, thank you.
All right?
I'm from the Wall Library. Basically, we just really want to thank you for the guidance and help that you've given us, especially Mr. Davis, and thank you to the Hill City Library. They've done a lot for us, too. We'd like to echo what Hill City said, and we want you to know that the City of Wall has now raised their increase to us by approximately 56%, and I think you've helped us pique their interest as well. We've upgraded with grants. We're looking into grants for trouble with our foundation, and we're going to contact towns, townships, clubs in the area to help us with things that work within our guidelines. We hope to make improvements to our drop box paved areas. Maybe we can work out a patio system outside. We have a lot of visiting tourists come to our library that would use that. We are going to work on a bike rack with the, I think it's a mechanical arts department on the school. We have a great librarian who implements a lot of reading contests with great prizes, and I'm a rather new president and we have a rather new full board, but we're all very interested in doing what you need us to do and what you want us to do and to improve and keep our library going. We want to just thank you again for all your help and guidance. It's been extremely beneficial to us as a new board. Thank you, thank you.
And you're not requesting any more money either.
No.
All right.
Mr. Chair. Oh, good. Go ahead.
I'm the library director from the Wall Library, and I just wanted to touch base with you because we had talked to you last year about the essential requirement, and I think at that time you had said that it wasn't something you felt was necessary. We were concerned about the cost of it for our library because it would be a fairly large expense, and I didn't do it because you said it was okay. So we've missed the deadline for this year. That means we will not be considered essential, and that will be a problem for us.
Well, I think that we're very aware of it. I mean, we're giving time. We're not saying we're going to.
Okay, because ours
Yeah.
expires this year. That's what I'm worried
Yeah.
about. Is if that's something you want to do, we can definitely do it, but we need to plan for it. So, okay, thank you very much.
I think what Commissioner Troutman is trying to let everybody know is that this year the budget for libraries is $472,540, and the maximum tax that we can assess is $444,388. So you can see it's more than what we can levy, and we're slowly burning up the reserves in that fund. And when the reserves are gone, the extra money's gone.
Commissioner Davis, did you have something?
Yes, Mr. Chair, maybe I can save some time. I'll tell you what, I'm going to make a motion to allow the budget that we have that presented today with an addition of $25,000 for the Ellsworth Task Force and $10,000 for economic development, and pass the budget today instead of waiting until the 20th.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Where are we gonna?
We have a motion and a second. Did you,
I thought the workshop in the Conservation District wanted to talk to us. Are they here today or? Oh, because there was a.
Commissioner Holloway just asked for
Okay. Okay.
okay, was there anyone else here making a request?
Mr. Chair,
Okay, so
are you ready for some comments?
yes.
Well, I normally, I voted with Commissioner Holloway against giving both of these money. I'm sure the one reason I did it with economic development was because it was my vote against the city and their tax increment financing, because that's where we do pay plenty of money for economic development. Ellsworth, I don't know whether the state takes over enough and it's a duplication of services or not. What I'm looking at is that our reserves are 20% according to our auditor. The $35,000 represents 1/4 of that, and I think the 1/4 of our reserves would be well spent on those two items. That's why I'll be voting in favor of it.
Any other comments on the motion?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to vote against it, mainly because of the Ellsworth Task Force. I'm still not convinced it's not a duplication in services, and granted, it's only $25,000, but, and when you talk about an $83 million budget, $25,000 doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a lot of money to a lot of people, and it's $25,000 is a lot of money to me. So I'm not in favor of granting the Ellsworth Task Force that amount of money at this time. I understand there is a meeting coming up on the 6th, and I plan to go to that to hear more about what they actually do. But, so I'll be voting against this motion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I could just bring something to the front, and we're talking about money and $25,000 to the Ellsworth Task Force. And I can guarantee you this, if it wasn't for the Ellsworth Task Force, the last time around when we had the previous BRAC Commission, that base would not be there. I don't care what anybody says. And just about everything that came out of anybody's mouth that came into this community and went to any kind of press releases or visits or talk when we were in the Pentagon and the Secretary of Defense came right out of Pat McElgan's mouth, who's the head of the Ellsworth Task Force. And the Ellsworth Air Force Base is beyond all of the recognition that we could possibly give them to, for the national security of this country. If you look up there on the board, you'll see the picture of that B-1. That B-1 took off out of Ellsworth Air Force Base and flew to Libya in a blinding snowstorm, fully loaded with armament. And they're supposed to have 3,000-foot clearance, and they took off in less than 300 foot of visibility out of Ellsworth. Dyess Air Force Base was asked if they could do it before Ellsworth was asked, and the Dyess said no. They couldn't do that. But that plane right there went to Libya. So that's our national security that those planes put out there, along with $1 million a day into our Black Hills economy. So again, I'm going to say it's a poor place to start saving money.
Any other comments about the motion?
I'll just have to make one more comment, I guess.
Go ahead.
It's not about saving money, it's about wasting money. And if you spend money for duplicating services, it's a waste of money. We ought to be working together and not independent. I support Ellsworth. I think they're a great organization. I support our national defense. I just don't support spending money out of in two different areas for the same purpose. They ought to be working together.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
We worked very well together with the Ellsworth Task Force leading the charge the last time around, and that's what I tried to instill in my previous conversation. And we've wasted more money than the $35,000 that we're talking about here in the snap of the fingers when we were giving out our new salary benefits earlier in the year. But Ellsworth is not something to mess around with. If we don't show our support for Ellsworth Air Force Base today and in the future, that base won't be there if some people have their way. It's just not the thing to do.
Mr. Troutman, did you have?
Well, yes, I was curious as to what the Rapid City puts towards it. Do we know that?
The Ellsworth Task Force,
Yeah.
it's way more money than the $25,000, I can tell you that, but I don't want to throw out a figure because I'm not exactly sure right now.
Yeah, because I'm kind of looking for that.
Any other comments?
I suspect this has to be a roll call vote, doesn't it?
I think so. Karen, would you restate the motion so that we understand?
Moved by Davis and seconded by Busker to add in $25,000 to the Ellsworth Task Force, $10,000 for the Greater Rapid City Economic Development Partnership, and
pass the budget as presented with those increases.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further remarks on the motion? Roll call vote.
Musgrove,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Holloway,
No.
Troutman,
No,
Peterson,
Yes. Motion carried. Budget is adopted.
Excuse me. Finish up. We do need the adoption of the 2014 annual budget for Pennington County, South Dakota that was provided in your packet. It does allow a for and against, but I need all commissioners to sign that so that I can send it in. And I need direction from the board if you want me to still freeze levies with these additions. That wasn't addressed.
And that would mean that it comes out of reserves then?
Yes.
I'd make
And
a
that I
motion.
can balance it with the growth of utilities.
Do you want that in the form of a motion?
I would, yes, thank you.
I'd make a motion to freeze the levies.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to freeze the levy. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And
Resolution?
the resolution.
I'd make a motion to have the chair sign the resolutions presented by the auditor's office as well as the rest of the commissioners.
This calls for everyone to sign it.
That's what I said,
Yep.
as well as the rest of the commissioners.
There's a for and against.
Second.
Do they have a copy?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Which one of these is the one you need, Julie? One's in blue. One's in blue and one's,
It doesn't make any difference what color the ink is.
okay.
And then you can check how you voted on it so it matches the record, please.
Louis Freiberg.
Okay, we'll do this one.
Louis Freiberg.
Louis Freiberg.
Yeah.
Funny you should bring that up. Did we have a vote on,
You just sign it?
did we
Do we
finalize
need to
that?
make a
No, we-
motion to adopt the resolution?
We have a motion
Yep.
for the resolution, just not a vote.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, thank you, Julie. I guess she took off already. We've already done item 17, so the next item is the planning and zoning consent agenda.
We already did this one while we were out.
Morning, Dan Jennison, Pennington County Planning Director. The Board of Commissioners uses a consent agenda to act on non-controversial and routine planning and zoning items quickly. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and a vote of the board. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of a board member or a citizen. The consent agenda for planning and zoning contains the following items. Item 18A, minor plat, 1316 Jarvis and Francis Olson, Fisk Land Surveying as the agent. Approval is recommended. Item B is a plan unit development review, 0607 Black Hills Resorts, Inc., Cimarron Park, Art Shanklow, to be continued to the November 8th, 2013 meeting.
Does anyone wish to remove either item or both from the consent agenda?
Yeah, I would like to pull up item B.
Okay, item B has been removed from the consent agenda. Any further comments? If not, do we have a motion?
To approve item A? Yes, sir.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve item 18A. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item B.
Yeah, my only question there, since the applicant is now deceased, but the applicant is the Black Hills Resorts, Inc., so I take it whoever took over control of that is now the applicant?
That's what we're trying to resolve before we bring this back to the Planning Commission, is to work with whoever the applicant is to resolve all the issues.
Okay, and that's just a continuation, all right,
Correct.
never mind.
Okay,
I make a motion to approve item B.
motion to approve item B, is there a second?
Yes.
Motion and a second,
And that's to approve the continuation of it. not the-
continuation.
Right.
Okay, any other comments? Not, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Regular agenda.
Item C is a road construction within a public right-of-way, Patrick Breen this is located within the community of Silver City. He is requesting to relocate the actual road to the center of the right-of-way. This came before you on August 6th, where he got approval to waive the engineered road construction plans. He's now submitted his request without those road construction plans, and now just wants to build a 12-foot wide road in the middle and relocate it. Currently, the road is partially on his property. He just wants to move it to the center, which is a 66-foot wide road. Our ordinance would require it to be built to a 24-foot wide paved road with curb gutter sidewalks. Currently in Silver City, there is nothing like that. However, staff cannot recommend against our ordinance, so I did write the conditions up with that in there. If you approve it as requested, you would have to amend condition number 1 to say a 12-foot wide graveled road. And so staff did recommend approval with 7 conditions.
And all of the conditions apply except for the 12,
You would have to amend condition number 1.
the 12-foot wide
Yes.
gravel,
Yes,
and that would be consistent with the rest of the roads in Silver City.
with most of the roads in Silver City.
Some
Some
are
are
great.
wider, some are narrower,
Some are dirt.
yes.
What's the future land plan look like in Silver City?
Suburban residential district.
There is one?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Dan, has there been any conflict with anybody else on doing this? Is there any statements from any other individuals?
I know the applicant has talked to, I believe, all the landowners in the area. As I've understood, he's indicated that some of the people have moved because there is a parking lot. One guy was using basically the right-of-way as a parking lot. I understand he has moved most of the vehicles that were being parked there out of there. So as far as I know, no, there hasn't been a lot of discussion as to relocating this road.
Okay.
Come on up.
Good morning, Patrick Breen. Relevant to that last question about neighbors, I do have a letter from another neighbor referencing the support of what's in front of you. So neighbors have been talked to. I'm not the only one who is wanting this trail moved to the center. Myself and another neighbor are the most affected by this present trail system right up to our property and being able to get off the road and allow passage and so on and so forth. So just wanted to reference that. I do have a copy of that if anyone wanted to see that letter of support. She couldn't make it here today. Her name's Kamala Brennick.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'd make a motion to approve the applicant's request along with the stipulations by the planning department with the change in item 1. Is that correct?
Yes.
And would you state the change to that's what the secretary can have?
The roadway located within the public right-of-way be improved to include a minimum 12-foot wide graveled driving surface.
Now, did you get a second to your motion?
I'll second that.
Okay.
Okay, Heine?
I just have one question. I'm not opposed to the 12-foot wide, but how far away is the nearest tree? I guess I'd like to see at least a 14 or 15-foot wide buffer, the trees removed back that far. I don't know if you had a condition on the trees that they had to be so far from the traveled surface. I hate to see just a narrow with a tree right on the edge of the surface, I guess is my concern.
That could be accommodated. I guess my comment would be that it doesn't exist now, and there are quite a few other trails. And caveat to that is, we're not asking for county maintenance. It's an unmaintained trail now. It was actually never created by the county, but it is technically a street, 6 foot wide public right-of-way. So we're not asking for any maintenance. We're not asking for any trucks to go down. Same situation that exists now. We just want that trail to the center. So I would request that that county recognition not be granted, just because that would make it difficult for not only that trail, but for
Every trail.
every trail. Yes. So it's pretty much stipulating something that isn't practical in that community.
I was just concerned if you have to drive a snowplow truck, or if you got a blizzard and somebody asks for county assistance, if there's a tree right next to the traveled way, it'd be better if we had just a little buffer, if we had a 14-foot wide clear cut or something.
I agree.
Just to make sure a motor grader or a snow blower that's my concern. Not to have a tree right on the edge of your 12-foot.
Well, I guess then if we're gonna go that level, then we would be going a different route, asking for county involvement with this road and have a road constructed to meet county regulations, which we're not.
I don't wanna meet county regulations, I just wanna make sure if you have a 12-foot traveled way, I don't want a tree right next to the edge of the gravel. You know, at least have a 14-foot clear cut, no trees within a 14-foot
We
slot.
do have photographs. I don't believe you'd have an issue with what I'm proposing. If you see the photographs from the PowerPoint that was in there, I think there might be a printout in your packet. There isn't really an issue with trees that close.
I didn't think so.
I don't believe that would even become
So-
an issue. I just
So it
don't
really
want
wouldn't
to
hurt anything if it was in there, just stipulation for the highway department.
Right, yeah, I'm just saying that if
And I think,
you demand that, it could be difficult.
14-foot total wide surface with 12-foot surface, and actually have some on each side for, okay. I'd enter that into my motion on them.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, there's no issue there. I just didn't want to get too.
I just wanted to make sure we were covered.
It's just.
Okay, any further
No big
comment?
deal, I just didn't want, I thought it was 14 feet both sides, is what I was thinking. I said 14 feet both sides.
No, it's just 2 foot.
Total. Oh, okay. I misunderstood that whole thing. There's 14 foot on each side. I was like, oh my gosh, that could be tough for everybody.
I'm gonna vote for this, Mr. Chairman, just because the county fire coordinator says he does not have any objections, and if he doesn't have an objection, and he thinks the fire trucks can get through there, that's fine.
Okay, I guess, the one question I have, if the motion the 7 items are preceded by the staff recommends, and that is not a part of the motion?
Oh, I understood they were, just
That's
with
part
a
of the-
change
Well,
to
but-
condition number
but-
1.
If Commissioner Davis's motion is that these 7 conditions exist with the change in item 1, then it's a commission decision, it's not a staff recommendation.
Yeah, it would be staff's recommendation that the 7 conditions be part of the approval with the change to, of course, the motion was with the change to condition number 1.
Okay, that's fine. Any other thoughts? We do have a motion and a second. And was it your intention that the motion be amended to cover the 14-foot deal?
Yes, and the second went along with that.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item D.
Item D is administrative building permit review for Brett and Shauna Hansen. It's located out on Highway 1416. What this is a building permit. The applicants came in to request a building permit for an addition to a barn. Come to find out, when they bought the property back in '99, it was described as 40 acres, and it is zoned general ag district, which requires a minimum of 40 acres. Well, since then, back in 2008, they took the right-of-way out of the property, which then reduced the lot acreage from 40 acres to 38.48 acres, thus not meeting the minimum lot size requirement in a general ag district. So our ordinance, section 506, actually allows them to come before the board to request an administrative review. It's never been done before, but as far as I'm aware anyway.
It has been.
Oh, it has, okay. To basically order the staff to issue a building permit for this structure in lieu of not being able to get the building permit because the lot does not meet the minimum lot size. Staff is also then, we'd like to possibly proceed in the future with doing an ordinance amendment to address this situation so this does not have to happen again if right-of-way is being taken out because of the way it's described in right-of-way being added to the property or being removed from the property.
I would like to make a motion to grant the administrative review and grant the building permit 13-0336 and have the staff draft proposed ordinance amendment which accommodates the removal of right-of-way from lots that would otherwise not meet the minimum lot size.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to comment? Any questions?
After the motion, may I ask Dan a question about this, though?
No.
I mean, it doesn't quite go with the motion, and I don't want to muddy that.
No, you certainly can. Okay, we have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Do you want to ask him in private?
No. So I got a little confused here because we have been talking about how what the Department of Equalization does not affect anything with planning and zoning, but it seemed like it did here. It seemed like when Department of Equalization pulled out that acreage for the right-of-way, then it became an issue. And we've been going through a lot of this last several months, and over I've heard that whatever equalization doesn't affect what planning and zoning does. But it seems like it did here, and I don't understand why that is. Can you explain that to me?
I will try. The parcel size is described in that equalization. That's what's viewable to us and everybody else, and that's how that parcel goes out when they send out notifications to the landowner. As shown as, and it was, I mean, our building permit showed that in the past, as you saw as the attachments there, it was described as 40 acres. Well, now when you bring up that parcel on Rapid Map or through equalization, it now shows it as 38.46 or 48 acres. And that's what we've always gone by, that's what we've always looked at, is how it's described as a parcel. And right now it's described as 38.48 acres.
So it really does affect. I mean, I've been going under this assumption, I've heard it over and over again the last several months, that what happens over an equalization doesn't affect planning and zoning, but it really does then.
In this case, yes, but I think the issue was before zoning. Before the zoning is not affected by whether equalization has it as ag or non-ag. I think that's the issue that's been discussed.
And my contention has been that when you switch it to 160 acres, that does affect what you do in planning and zoning, and it seems like I'm right, based on this. Yeah.
No, it does not affect it.
Our zoning,
Well, if he's viewing that.
our minimum lot size in a general ag is actually 40 acres. It's not, unless an ordinance amendment is done, our ordinance still says general ag requires 40 acres or more.
However, you just mentioned that because it dropped to 38.48, that changed how you viewed that piece of property.
Oh, the zoning's still general ag.
Okay.
That did not change. It's still zone general ag.
But then it becomes an issue for a building permit because of the change, right?
Because of the lot size.
Yeah,
because of the lot
size. And the zoning says it's gotta be 40 acres.
Okay.
And that's why it's before the board to get an administrative review.
Okay.
Did I answer some of
No.
that? Oh, sorry.
I still think it's going to be very confusing to people.
But when at 160 acres, the zoning is still gonna require a 40 acre
Correct. Correct. Did
parcels.
not change at all.
Even though to get ag status on your taxes, it would be 160.
Confusing to the public.
That's confusing to us, obviously, right?
Any further discussion? Dan, do you have someone you want to introduce?
Yes. I hired an assistant planning director, PJ Conover. He comes from actually from Arizona, although he's been here since April of 2012. And he has a degree of community resources and development, a master's degree out of Arizona, and a psychology degree from the University of Pittsburgh.
A psychology
We don't want
degree?
him in
No, none of
That
that.
might be dangerous to the commission.
Why would you say that?
And he did work for the city of Phoenix and Chandler in Arizona for many, many years.
Great. Welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Did you have any contact with the police department in Chandler?
Minimal.
One of my relatives was chief of detectives in Chandler. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, item 19. Oh, excuse me. We didn't vote on it?
It's a nice way of
Do you
saying
still
it.
want to vote on it?
I do.
Okay. Okay, we had a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Karen. Items from the chair. I would just mention that tomorrow, 9 o'clock at the Extension Building is the next ag taxation meeting. I am going to be in Wall. We're going to go down there for a land issue. Commissioner Buskerud has indicated an interest in joining the activity. Commissioner Troutman will be in charge.
Oh, okay.
And just so you know, the meeting is open to the public. And what we did previously was two commissioners went with the county focus and two went with the legislative focus. So you folks will have to divide up tomorrow to suit your interests. Any committee reports?
I'll pass today, Mr.
Yes.
Chair.
Last week, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, we had a Western South Dakota Juvenile Services Center compact meeting, and I don't know if you recall, I think we've mentioned this before, that compact, which was formed 20 years ago, expires like the 1st of November. And the sheriff and the state's attorney presented a new joint powers agreement rather than a compact agreement to the membership to consider adopting. All of the respective counties were there. They've taken it back to their boards to review. It probably doesn't impact Pennington County all that much. I mean, if they sign, great. If they don't sign, then they can sign the sheriff can get together with them, just sign a use contract for the facility. And I'm not sure, just in listening to the other counties, it sounded like some of them were leaning to sign in the joint powers agreement and still being kind of a compact. And there was some that was talking about not being a part of that agreement and just doing a use agreement with the county. So this will be coming back sometime before the 1st of November. We should know where we're going to be with it.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Troutman indicated no report, so next item is items from the public. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to address the commission?
My name is John Henderson. I'm from Hill City. I had no intention of addressing, but no one else is here, so I guess I will. I would like to commend Commissioner Troutman on her recognition of this confusion on this last issue. But I guess really the only reason I'm here is so there's someone here. Obviously, I'm here because of the 160-acre change, all that. So we try to keep someone here so we don't get rear-ended like we did when it was passed. No offense, but that's my position. Now, I do recognize and I do think you have a very valid point that there's always confusion between planning and zoning and equalization, and it exists all the time. While you were in executive session, I went to the bathroom, so I'm coming past their planning and zoning's office. I'm thinking, what about if you have whatever it is, whatever the number of acres is, it doesn't matter. But you have some property that is taken out of the ag status, but planning and zoning on one hand says you can't build on it because it's a floodplain, okay? You have a lot of issues that are still, like this one, confusing, and they're confusing to the public. You even admitted they're confusing to you. So maybe the psychologist or psychiatrist or whatever he is might be able to help all of us.
Hopefully
My point
it's a
is,
psychiatrist.
Are you making a recommendation or?
no, not for you, not me. Anyway, my point is, you have a valid point. There is a lot of confusion. So, and as you well know, there are a lot of people that are going to be affected by this 160 deal. And this is a 40-acre deal, and it's still confusing even in 40. Planning and zoning and equalization never can seem to figure out one thing. In the construction field, which is what I used to do before I became an idiot and got into ranching, it's always a battle. You probably all recognize or have heard that everybody jokingly calls it Penalty County because it's so difficult. And you brought up a very, very good point. Like I said, I had no intention of speaking, but your point was very valid, and I'd just like to commend you for recognizing it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, we have item 22.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to go into executive session for personnel and contractual.
Is there a second?
The rest of them don't want to go.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.